It has been a week, that's for sure. So let's talk about the one thing that we can all agree is the most important thing in the world right now, art. Um, yeah, been a week. So I went to go see Marty Supreme this week. Um, I had had a friend ask me previously if I wanted to go see it, and I had said no because I wasn't feeling particularly drawn to it. And then another one of my friends was like, "Do you want to go for a $5 movie night?" And I said, "Sure." So I went for $5 movie night at the local movie theater. I was actually surprised to see our theater was pretty full. Maybe I guess because it was $5 movie night, but there was like a good amount of people there. Um, and okay, my annoyance in the fact that I succumbed and I went to go see it, even though I didn't really want to, is that because my sort of thing was like, you know, I want to understand what the hype is all about. I want to understand what everybody's talking about, which means that I fell prey to the marketing. And not in the way that I wanted to, because I didn't look at the marketing and go, oh, this is so cool. This looks awesome. It really was just like, oh, let's go see what all the fuss is about. But it still worked on me. So, like, what does that have to say? Um, Anyway, so I'll get back to the marketing because I think that colors my overall experience with this movie. Um, I'm not like a film critic. I like to think that I have a decent eye for things. I fucking hated this movie. I hated watching it. I knew I was not gonna like it, and like it didn't take me long to realize that I was not having a good time. And it's funny because it's so easy to get caught in the trap of like this is good and this is not good. And these are the principles by which we should tell stories, and these are the ones that we shouldn't. And what art and storytelling are ever evolving, and the standards by which we judge them, and why we tell stories and why they're important to us. It's stuff that I've been talking about, and it's the stuff that's really interesting to me. And so, like, I can tell you why I hated it, but I know that people are gonna and have liked it. Because here's the thing, it's a well shot movie, the performances are good, the soundtrack I really liked. There was a really sick, like, flute solo, or like a flute. Well, again, I don't know that much about like music and stuff, but there was a very flute forward song when there's a police chase, and it's very cool. Spoiler alert, there's a police chase. Um, just an exasperated sigh. Because here's the thing, it's the same director. I think is what's his last name? Shafty. That can't be right. I'm gonna Google it live on video right now. Super exciting. Content here, Marty Supreme. I could have done this before I started recording, but what fun would that be? Safdie is his name. I said Shafty. That's hilarious. Anyway, but it was written. Oh, okay, no. It was directed by Safdie and written by Ronald Bronstein. Okay, so because the other thing that I've seen of Safdie, I didn't know it was him, but my friend I was with, who's very knowledgeable about film and TV, was like, "Oh yeah, this is the same guy that did Uncut Gems," and I was like, "Oh, okay." That makes a lot more sense because I loved Uncut Gems. I've rewatched it like twice since I saw it the first time. Um, it's one that I really like. And it has a lot of similarities to Marty Supreme. Just like very okay, let me just like kind of break down what I didn't like. So Marty is insufferable. He's just an asshole and just rude and brash and arrogant and loud and just like annoying and really at every turn at least inconveniences the people around him, at worst puts the people that he loves who surround him in literal mortal danger, and like doesn't seem to care. And I didn't find that particularly compelling, because Uncut Gems was kind of similar to that. Like you had this very flawed, Adam Sandler plays like this very flawed, again, like loud, brash, um, you know, selfish character. But I think with a few key differences, like, um, I think Adam Sandler's character in Uncut Gems, you could really tell that he loved his family despite the fact that he was a fuck up. Like, he did actually care about them, it seemed like, even with Idina Menzel, his wife, and they were like fighting and stuff. They still had like a moment where it was like, oh, remember when we were in love? And like, I care about that. He has a heart, even if he's, a selfish asshole. And then in Marty Supreme, I was like, okay, you care about table tennis, which, okay, this is another comparison I was drawing, which again, I'm influenced by my tastes and the things that I like. Challengers is one of my favorite movies. And the thing I love about Challengers is that it's like a fun, sexy movie or whatever. But really, I feel like it's about these people's relationship to tennis and their sport and like the craft of playing tennis. And Zendaya's character, her whole thing being like, I want to see a good fucking game of tennis. And then orchestrating an interpersonal, like, really taking advantage of their personal history to like orchestrate what she perceives as the greatest game of tennis, that like actually gets her excited about the sport. I think that's just a really fucking cool movie and a cool premise and everything. So, and I'm also a sucker for sports films. So there were moments in Marty Supreme, like just in general, I don't know why. I grew up in a very athletic family, I think, but there were moments in Marty Supreme that like that part of my brain kicked on and I was getting excited about like the sport, like, ooh, like who's gonna win, like tight shots of them playing. And I feel like the table tennis stuff, again, I'm comparing it to Challengers, but it wasn't shot in very interesting ways. It was kind of just like almost like an isometric view of the table, and they would just be hitting it back and forth, and that was kind of it. Um, but this movie wasn't like about table tennis. I guess I wanted it to be more about that, so it doesn't have to be. Again, like it can tell the story it wants to tell. But there was just a bunch of other stuff in it that I was like, there were so many plot threads, there were so many characters, to the point that it just felt bloated, and just so that little Timmy could have more people to fuck over, essentially, is kind of what it felt like. And there was all this stuff of like it was post war, and it's him versus a Japan. He has this rivalry with like another Japanese table tennis player, and I was like, oh, this could be like an interesting sort of commentary on like the sort of brash, arrogant American on the world stage, uh, you know, when post war tensions with Japan were like really high. Um, and there was a lot of like face to be made. And you have this scene, which again, this is just speaking for me. I'm gonna spoil the whole movie, so click away if you don't want to hear it or whatever. But this scene where the two of them are playing table tennis, Marty and the Japanese player, and it's a fake, it's like an exhibition match, and Timothy Chalamet is getting paid to lose and like put on the show and play the fool, and he loses, and then he goes, no, that wasn't a real game, and like gets the crowd to rally behind him and says like, let's play a real game. I want to play a real game, and they say yeah. The other player says yes, and they're gonna do it, and they do it, and he wins, and I was like, why does he get to reclaim his pride? The whole movie is about how he's just an asshole and in my eyes has no redeeming qualities. Uh and I know I'm operating from a place of like I want to see every character get their due. Which is a big part of the storytelling tradition, but it's one that I really hold on to. So I see a character that I see as only being a bad, like exclusively being a bad person, and doesn't deserve any ounce of achieving his dream of like being, getting his. He doesn't feel like he earned his pride. Like he didn't deserve to have his pride given back to him. And there, the if you've seen it, the spanking scene, which you know exactly what I mean. I thought that was a good moment. It still made my fucking skin crawl seeing those creepy old like white guys be so smug and pleased with themselves. Wow, you're really getting some unfiltered Noel right now. But it's how it made me feel. Like that moment didn't even feel vindicating because it felt like a movie that reveled in the idea of cruelty in a way that Uncut Gems didn't to me. Like Uncut Gems, there was enough like characters actually caring about each other, that it didn't feel so icky. And the other point I was getting to was that in Uncut Gems, um, it's like it felt Shakespearean to me, like King Lear, where everybody fucking dies at the end because Adam Sandler's character dies. And he deserved to die because he just it was like I thought it was a really awesome like tragic story because it's just a character who knows better and keeps pushing boundaries and taking these risks at the expense of the people who love him in his life, just like Marty. And he died at the end of the movie. And I just thought that was a really, it moved me when I saw it, like genuinely, of like, yeah, this is what happens when you push too hard. And then I feel like Marty Supreme was like such a similar movie, like in structure, and like it's just this continuous cascade of chaos to the point that it's like upsetting to watch. Like true, like I wasn't having fun with this movie. It just stressed me out. And then at the end to have Marty win the game and get to recapture that pride. And then okay, I guess you could say that there's some ambiguity with again, I'm assuming you've seen the movie at this point. Assuming there's some ambiguity with how he felt about having a child, it seemed like that was a happy moment for him, which again didn't make sense to me because at every other turn he's been so selfish and just wants to be the table tennis champion and again is willing to fuck over anybody in his life to do that and achieve that. So I don't it felt like the text was trying to say to me that he's had like a change of heart and he's happy to take on this responsibility now. Maybe that's me misreading the text. I don't know, but I almost wanted like I was saying even just like a still shot for the credits to roll over of like him sitting in, you know, a shitty apartment with uh oh the woman's name I can't remember. I I don't want to call her a baby mama because that sounds like it has I feel like that has misogynistic overtones, undertones, whatever. Anyway, her character and the baby's like crying and it's just like miserable and he's just sitting there like what have I done? You know what I mean? Like something to show me that he's not like happy. I hate to say that. It sounds terrible to be like this character doesn't deserve to be happy, but I don't think he does. Okay. So that's like my read and I could point out some technical things about it, but I think ultimately it comes down to me hating the story and just thinking it's not very good. But again, my point that I wanted to make was that, like, that's me coming at it from a very specific mode of, like, I want to see every character get, like, what they deserve, you know? And so I don't know that that's a necessarily, like, fair point to judge a movie on, to say, like, I'm asking it to be a different kind of story than it is. Because here's the thing at the end of the day, like, I'm still thinking about it. Like, it's challenged me. And I didn't want it to because, again, the marketing really icked me out and felt so bro-y. And just like Timothy Chalamet is gunning so hard for this Oscar, it feels like. And I don't know. I don't feel like it deserves. I mean, I don't feel like it deserves any. Not any, maybe, but I don't know. Certainly not Best Picture. And the fact that it's in the conversation for Best Picture, I think, is silly. But I also am pretentious, and my favorite movie of the year was Hamnet, which feels like the pretentious, you know, type of thing that the Academy would pick. Really, I think Sinners deserves to win. Because Sinners, okay, the other thing about Sinners that's interesting is that it has such a cool narrative structure that feels like kind of different. I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's a real like slow build and then everything like explodes all at once. And I really love that because you get so used to the like, okay, actiony, or like we're putting on the pressure and then we take it off and we have a conversation and then we go and then we slow down and then we go. Like that type of pacing is so common that it's just nice to have something that's like differently paced, you know? On top of the rest of Sinners being amazing and the sound mixing and the music and the acting and the fact that it's horror is so cool and I like the vampire stuff and yeah. Anyway, I sound like an idiot. I had a greater point about this. Oh yeah, so, you know, just talking about the Oscar conversation. And that's another thing that irks me. Shocker. Because it feels like suddenly, you know, we reach like award season and it feels like another instance of the commodification of art and trying to objectively qualify art when that's not how it works and that's not what it is and that's not what it's for. But again, like that's the game you have to play if you want to make movies and you want to be a successful actor or director. Like those awards really mean something. They're like a very tangible thing to put on your resume or whatever, to be able to have that next opportunity and get paid more and all of those things. But at the same time, it's like it feels like a marker from people who, and I'm going to sound really condescending when I say this, but people who don't know how to engage earnestly with art. And this is a general sweeping statement that I'm making. I know I'm making a lot of assumptions, but it feels like something that people who aren't creative can point to and be like, oh, look, the objective thing that says that this is good or this is whatever. And again, trying to push back on the idea of like, what does it mean for art to be good? Why is that a quantifier that we're putting onto something? Like, that's a conversation I've had with some friends recently, because I think when I worked in games, I was so obsessed with the idea of like the best possible story. Not only like in a game, uh, anything that I was working on or otherwise, but also just like in any medium. What is the best possible book that I could write, or the best possible screenplay, or whatever? And again, like talking back to what the purpose of storytelling is, that is so different depending on any individual that you ask, what they're looking for. Like I've had conversations with friends about how much I really don't like the romantasy trends with literature. I'm really bouncing around, try and stay with me. But you know, with literature and stuff, like the fantasy books that mostly women read, that have a lot of sex in them. And I want to sit here and again be the old man yelling at the cloud and shaking my fist and saying, like, this is shit. You people need to be reading real books and all that stuff. But the people who read those books aren't looking to be challenged by something. And again, I'm making a lot of assumptions and I know I sound condescending, but I genuinely mean just like people want to engage with something, that's going to be an escape for them. And for a lot of women, those stories are very appealing for whatever reason. They're not my thing, but they're very appealing. And so it's like I'm torn, because I'm like, I wish people would read truly great literature, because I think that they would realize that it's not as scary as they think it is, and it can also be so, so profoundly moving. Um, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm just glad people are reading. You know, these stories are kind of keeping the publishing industry afloat right now, which is really sad. But again, I'm saying it's, you know, saying it's sad. I'm happy that people are enjoying those books. I don't know. It's, again, many things can be true at once. It's all very messy. And the other thing is that none of this is an exact science. And I think that's honestly why, when it comes to anti intellectualism, art is something that suffers when that is the popular sort of rhetoric, because at the end of the day, um, there's no right answers to what any of this is or should be. Um, Art is, like I say, so subjective, and so it can be so amorphous. And we have these standards that we sort of created for ourselves, but then you can come in and just completely blow something open and try something completely new that no one's ever thought of before and break all of those rules. And, you know, who's to say that that's not artistic? Um, in fact, sometimes I think that's the most artistic something can be, is when it just does something completely new. Anyway, so yeah, I did not like Marty Supreme at all. At all. I thought it was a bad movie, but a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and so I'm trying not to take any of those conversations too seriously. Because at the end of the day, like, I just always want to be asking more questions, and why? Why did that connect with you when it didn't work for me? You know, what did you think was important about that or interesting? Like, I think that's what good art is supposed to do. It's supposed to challenge us to have conversations. So, okay, that was a real ramble. Hopefully any of that made sense. Cool. I'm gonna go. Have a great night. Bye.